Winston Churchill, who made this statement where he tied it all together in a London newspaper in 1920. He said, "From the days of Spartacus Weishaupt to those of Karl Marx to those of Trotsky, this worldwide conspiracy for the overthrow of civilization has been steadily growing. It played a definitely recognizable role in the tragedy of the French Revolution. It has been the mainspring of every subversive movement during the 19th century. And now, at last, this band of extraordinary personalities from the underworld of the great cities of Europe and America have gripped the Russian people by the hair of their heads and have become practically the undisputed masters of that enormous empire." Yet in 1945, Churchill would be among the 3 leaders at the infamous meeting at Yalta, an historic event that many argue was a gigantic push for the New World Order. Is it possible that somehow Churchill's youthful convictions changed 25 years later? For now he would sit in support of the very movement he sought to expose. The Soviet Union, under the bloody leadership of Joseph Stalin, was given power over half of Europe, a decision that would later lead to the murder of countless millions. It is said this was largely due to the efforts of Franklin D. Roosevelt. FDR was also responsible for putting the Masonic seal on the back of the U.S. dollar bill, with the all-seeing eye and the words Novus Ordo Seclorum, translated by many researchers as the New World Order. The Reverend Jim Shaw, a former 33rd degree Mason who left the order and wrote his book titled The Deadly Deception, was interviewed by a reporter in 1989. We read that, concerning the famous picture at the Yalta Conference, Reverend Shaw said, "And there they were, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin, all 3 Masons." Some may suggest that Yalta was simply the poor judgment of men who did not realize what they were doing. But is it possible that a much greater agenda was at work? In 1830, Adam Weishaupt died at the age of 82. In time, the power of Masonry and the Illuminati fell into the hands of 2 chief men, Albert Pike in the United States and a man named Giuseppe Mazzini, the head of Italian Masonry, who is alleged to have said, quote, "Our final end is that of Voltaire and of the French Revolution, the destruction forever of the Christian idea." Together, Pike and Mazzini devised a diabolical plan to finally bring about the New World Order. In 1871, Mazzini issued a letter in which he outlined the final 3-part plan for ridding not just Europe, but the entire world of Christianity, bringing it under the illuminated dictatorship of Luciferianism. Here in Washington, D.C., beneath a statue of Albert Pike, author William T. Still explains the contents of this remarkable letter.
This was a letter that was written by the head of European Masonry, a man by the name of Mazzini, who wrote it to Albert Pike about 1871. It was in the British Museum for a number of years on display, so we know it existed. It's now disappeared, incidentally. The subject of the letter was to try to figure out a way to finally get humankind to give up their cherished concept of nationalism and finally give in to the New World Order internationalist construct. The letter called for a series of 3 world wars. The first war would be to depose the Tsar in Russia so they could create an experiment in the control of populations, have a nation to do that in. Then the Second World War would allow this new nation to take control of Europe. Of course, they only got half of Europe, but that was the best they could do under the conditions after World War II. Then the Third World War would be between the Jews and the Muslims and would bring about the Battle of Armageddon, and would finally make mankind so sick of warfare that they'd give up their cherished concept of nationalism and give in to the New World Order concept.